Okay, I think I'm live. Good evening to anyone who's watching. As you noticed from the rather dodgy look on Jeremy Corbyn's face on the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about a speech he gave on Brexit in Coventry. Now, I know some of you might point out now that this will be probably close to the third stream with him on the thumbnail where he has talked about something or been involved in something, or well, it's going to make it look like I don't like him. Generally speaking, I don't really care about Jeremy Corbyn, that is. He's the leader of the opposition, and he's not very strong. Am I actually on the right channel? I am. Congratulations to me. Hello, Vomit Sausage. Anyway, there are some articles I wanted to show, and a video, but I didn't have enough time this evening after work to do that. So instead, I'm going to address some comments I saw on Twitter, and then we can address the... Oh, blimey, what's going on here? Why is that screenshot frozen the way... Oh, my life. When you're done spazzing out. Oh, I know what... Okay. Windows updated the photo app. Yeah. Nice. Just put the image I want up. Here we are. So, there were some talking points from it, from the speech, under the hashtag of #CorbynSpeech. And one was from Kate Andrews, and it says, Corbyn's case for renationalising mail. We all have one letterbox. It makes much more sense to have one mail delivery service than to have several vans coming down the street. Now this is a reference to Royal Mail. Somewhat privatised. They were publicly owned, then sold off. I mean, we did have to raise money somehow to pay off all that debt, or to pay some of it. Oh, I know I'm going to get left a comment about that now. Yes, I'm well aware of how the debt works, and I know what guilts are. Whoever you are, fuck off. Now, the argument to me is a weak one already, because while it's a wise idea to have one delivery service, we have many different suppliers or sellers that we use. For example, Amazon and home delivery service for food. We have international delivery that can't all be covered by Royal Mail. In fact, your argument sounds oddly similar to those that use the argument for staying in the EU. Just have one centralised government. No fuss. You don't have to worry about all the other pesky countries. Another one. Here we go. #Corbyn speech, full of good aspirations but huge hole at its centre. Two questions loom large. One, why would EU allow a new single market and customs union that allows us to cherry-pick benefits of current membership? And two, why leave the existing structures that offered these benefits? Yeah. There's another one from Kate Andrews about... with the quote, a very famous one from Jeremy Corbyn. Venezuela shows a different path and a better way of doing things. Because that's turned out so well for them, right? So, and there was a final couple, here we are. #Corbyn speech. If you ever want evidence that Labour doesn't understand why we voted for Brexit, you just got it. Jeremy Corbyn says we are not closing and toughening our borders. Newsflash, yes we are. We want extremely controlled migration, which is true. His unwillingness to back this key talking point, I reckon he thinks that the public voted on the NHS or something. Now there are two more tweets, let's see. Jeremy Corbyn, quote, we are citizens of the world. That may be the view in Islington, but I have a feeling a lot of Labour voters outside of London are actually quite proud to be British. Which is why he's kind of out of touch and deluded. Claims to want to talk... And interestingly, this is why I find it fascinating about him. Because he is so zealous when it comes to dealing with homelessness. He really is, and I actually support him with that. Solutions, not so good. But then his sort of desire to help everyone then skews to outside the country. But he's here to serve this country, so why is he trying so desperately to be globalist? It makes no sense. There's one here, last one. Liar MPs, what a farce, sorry. Under Labour's Brexit plan, we can't sign anything without the EU imposing rules and tariffs on us. It's like going into a heavyweight boxing match in ballerina outfit with one arm tied behind your back. Pretty much. In fact, I totally agree with that. Let's look at the chat quickly. Does Jeremy Corbyn say anything that isn't dodgy or batshit crazy? Well, I do agree with some of his stances on homeless people, how to help. I don't agree with the method, like just taking back privately owned property. No, I don't agree with that. But he does actually have a passion for some areas. He's not very good at... He's not a problem solver. He's good at highlighting a problem, not solving the problem. So, in the description I linked some articles and a video. The problem was the video is an hour long. So what I want to do instead is I'm going to address an article about it. From, I hope... Oh, did I put the BBC one down there? Bugger. Oh no, there's one here. Let's have a look. Sadly, and yes, to those who don't like this, it's going to be a Daily Mail article. I had a BBC one. I think it might be in the description. Give me a sec. If my tabs will work. Let's have a look. Here we go. Right. BBC, backs permanent customs union after... Right. We'll do the BBC instead, shall we? Because they're totally not biased, right? Yeah. So, Jeremy Corbyn backs permanent customs union after Brexit. Now, Labour, and I have my tablet here, because on my tablet, I had this briefing app, and it cropped up something on this subject about customs union. And this is written on The Independent, and this was only 5 hours ago, sorry. Whereas both articles were, sweet. The title from this one, Brexit. Labour plan to keep UK in customs union with EU is an option, not a commitment, says Corbyn's team. Now that, off the bat, sounded like almost like a backpedal or a way of, for example, not misleading people again. For those that don't know, during the 2016 to 2017 general election, I can't remember. 2017, yes. He made a comment in an NME magazine interview where he said he would look at student debt for those that had already left university. He never made the promise that he would wipe it, he'd look at it. Unfortunately, subsequent interviews with other places and independent outlets, he indicated that he would raise money from certain taxes, I believe, within 6 months of being in office. That was astonishing. It was never going to happen. To help deal with the student loan crisis, as he calls it. And for those who've watched him long enough, the word crisis gets used a lot for every service in a lot of aspects. Some of them it might actually be true, but unfortunately with the amount of times he's used it, I have a feeling the word has become watered down. It no longer reflects its true meaning, which is typical of certain mentalities, to water down meanings, like being literally Hitler or something. That kind of watering down, which sucks beyond belief. Why am I holding a charger in my hand? Special. So I want to address both the BBC article and this independent one, and you are welcome to watch the hour-long, yeah, it's an hour, speech he gave, where someone did in fact ask him a question. They asked him, when's he going to be Prime Minister? I think that's what they asked. If Theresa May's still in charge in 5 years, then, because seriously, she's not that strong. He's not much stronger, but unfortunately, yeah. And he'll probably then try and push forward with lowering the age of voting. But after watching people with all the Tide Pods, I'm not inclined to believe that people at the age of 18 should be allowed to vote at this moment in time. Honestly, it's as retarded as the Kylie Jenner lip challenge. How many people fucked their lips up doing that? Hello to everyone in the channel. I love the art. Oh yeah, my Charmander onesie. I've had it forever. Yes, hello Trups. Okay, So actually, I'll let you choose. Do you want me to address the BBC article first, or the Independent? Both broadly cover similar topics, but I'll let you choose. While I think about that, I should probably pull that article up. I should probably get the link for that Independent one as well and stick that in the description at some point. BBC's there, right? Oh, there's also a follow-on article, by the way. Boris Johnson wants to leave Britain a colony of the EU. What Corbyn wants to. His Brexit plan would leave Britain a colony of the EU, which I think is quite interesting. Impressive. Independent. Okay, so I get to look at my tablet for a little while then. Yay. Okay. The party leaves open option of walking away without tariff agreement if EU refuses to let UK play a role in negotiating new trade deals. Now, when it comes to cherry picking, this concerns me. It concerns me because we're leaving the EU. Oddly enough, I've only had this one sake for about 2 weeks, but I have been living on it. I'm quite happy. Yes, thank you, EE, for giving me that to make up for the truly shit internet you provide me. But the idea is, there is an inconsistency. Labour have multiple occasions on multiple interviews been absolutely flayed for this. They are trying to hold this position that they could negotiate picking parts of the trade of the trade agreement. No, the customs union. Sorry. So they get what's good for them. They think they can do that. They can't. There's no other country in the world that has that right. That is not a member of the EU. Not one. Everyone pays tariffs. We're still part of the continent, Europe, of course. We're still part of the European Council, which I've now discovered is a thing. I didn't know that. Yay. But we cannot get away with just picking apart what we want that's best for us. We have to accept we will have to pay tariffs. What the tariffs are, I think, can be negotiated depending on what we bring to the table. And as far as when it comes to, for example, this argument of letting the UK play a role in negotiating new trade deals, okay, that's silly. It's actually silly. We should accept the fact that when we leave the EU, we leave the customs union, hopefully the EU court as well, because a lot of their rules, the EU courts, I mean, there are some that I agree with. The work time directive, I actually tend to agree with it. I think there's nothing wrong with that, having that enshrined in British law. Totally agree with it. And certain rules and the Human Rights Bill, yeah, I think that should actually be enshrined in our law as well, not something separate. But I think we should have our own, and that's the problem with a fair position that Labour take. They seem to be comfortable with this idea of just staying there, which is a bit of a smack in the face to the voters. And this is something I don't think Corbyn also gets. While Islington North are quite happy, I think it's Islington North, are quite happy to continue voting him in. Or is it South? Doesn't matter. They do not represent all of the United Kingdom, and the will of the people was to leave. Some have, of course, come out and said, I feel Brexit guilt. That doesn't matter. 17 point something, 4, 6? Doesn't matter. It was 17 million people voted to leave. You don't represent the 16 million that voted to stay. You represent, well, something, I don't know what. Apparently you represent everyone but the people. Anyway, where is it? Labour could ditch plans for a customs union with the EU if Brussels refuses to give the UK a say in making new trade deals. Right. Yes, Labour could not negotiate walking down the street without requesting diversity. That is quite right. Okay, so the problem with this statement is I initially took it as to mean that we have a say on trade deals that the EU make with other countries, or deals that we make with them. Obviously, I'm not that stupid enough to think that might be right. I do think, though, that while we're leaving, and I think this makes sense, then we should be able to negotiate trade deals with other nations. Because we cannot just simply leave and that's it. We're already fronting 40 billion to the EU, possibly more, to, give them what they want, I guess. I'm not big on the idea of us being held back. Like everyone else gets a head start, but then we have to rush. Yes, Neil, it actually is. Diane doesn't order McDonald's. She rolls her eyes at the till and expects it to know what she wants, and if it doesn't get it right, or if she gives them the wrong money, she calls them racist. Gets it for free. But I do agree with the idea that back on topic, I do agree with the idea that if we are leaving the EU, we should be allowed to start negotiations with other nations, because either way we're leaving. So why can't we negotiate those deals? Is it because we're still a member? If that's the case, then rescind the membership now as quickly as possible, because and there have been many reports from think tanks, economists, saying that we bring more to the table. Whether that's right or not, debatable. Whether you want to trust economists or think tanks, that's on you. Quite frankly, I think it's all rather amusing. I voted leave. Very first time I voted in my entire life. I remember spending, days and days, because my mum, she had never voted. She didn't really know much about it, and I was talking to her about it, and she wanted to understand it, so I went through everything with her to make sure she understood what she was voting on. I think it was the last time she voted. Yeah, she voted leave, because as far as she was concerned, people were losing out on job opportunities. And it's been proven that they were losing out on job opportunities because of certain legislation. True. Okay, so vomit sausage, you are quite right. I agree. But that's where you are. That's the point. The crux of the point. Implementing them, but negotiating them is a different. That's what I'm okay with. The negotiating. They can be, a freaking handshake agreement, not on paper at all. As long as an agreement has been, Thank you, Laura. Nothing, Laura, everyone. I think it would be a good idea to negotiate, because we do have the option. Oh God, what is going on here? There we go. Sorry, my tablet's trying to load that stupid video with that with Corbyn giving a speech. Underneath it's got that slogan, "For the many, not the few." Amazing. Okay, so the Labour leader's spokesman insisted plans to stay in the customs union after Brexit were not a commitment after Mr. Corbyn used a major speech to say his party would seek to negotiate a deal to maintain existing trading terms. We can negotiate trade with them once we leave. Sorry, but I don't understand why. I think SNP are similar on this position about the customs union. I just don't think it's a reasonable position to hold. I think the fact that we're leaving, and I don't get how long ago was it now? 18 months, nearly 2 years? We voted to leave. Why is it so hard for people to understand that? Hi, Magog. How are you, my friend? Hope you get your studio sorted soon. Yeah, so instead, Labour would leave open the option of walking away from negotiations. Something which, considering... I don't see it happening. I think when a power play is made, it won't be done by Corbyn. It'll be done by the EU. And they've been pretty strong in negotiations so far, to the point where it's been reported that I believe one of their negotiators has had to relax it because he realised they're getting a bit close here to crunch time and they're not getting much done. Oh, you don't want to be listening to me, Magog, on your break. You really don't. But I like that you're here anyway. It's nice to see you. Enjoy your classes, you fucking muggle. Okay. So here we go. I didn't finish the sentence. Okay, so instead Labour would leave open the option of walking away from negotiations if EU leaders make clear the UK could only be part of the tariff union if it accepts it will not have a say over deals that are made. Okay. If we're leaving the EU and we're leaving the customs union, but you want to be a part of the customs union, then we have to be a part of the EU. you don't get a say on anything the EU does. We don't have a say at all. Once we leave, that's it. They can do whatever they want. They can turn themselves into the United States of Merkel. I just don't care. I don't think anyone cares. So that's not a position we can hold or maintain. It's not, in fact, it's not even a negotiating position. Because what would the point be? We get to tell you... No, we're not doing that. Okay, so it means a Labour government could ultimately adopt a similar position to the Conservatives and rule out any customs union with the EU, a move that would likely see tariffs imposed on goods and lead to a hard border in Northern Ireland. Now, I believe last year, during the summer, and it was mentioned last week in Prime Minister's Questions, that the Conservative Party had already set out how they would manage to keep the border. There has already been talks as well on top of that, and rumours, so I don't really want to hold much stock in it, that the EU wants to move move some kind of shipping border thing to the freaking Irish Sea bit. To I don't know. I'll quickly Google it while I think. But the idea of the hard border with Northern Ireland and Ireland. Ireland is not a part of the UK, for those who don't know. It's part of the EU as well. It's been bailed out before as well because they're not very good with their money. They spend it all on whiskey and Guinness. Let's have a look. Ireland, EU. EU stands firm over Ireland border. EU leave out Northern Ireland compromise and EU withdrawal agreement. So there is actually a standstill on that at the moment. Okay. Fine. If the problem and a position others have mentioned is a reference to the Good Friday Agreement, which to an extent has maintained some semblance of peace with Northern Ireland and Ireland for about 20 plus years. As far as I'm concerned, if it actually does work, if we have to have a hard border, then so be it. I don't actually see much of a problem with it, because then it's down to Ireland to maintain that. Northern Ireland, we don't give a fuck. I don't actually think anyone cares, unless they're about to start some Protestant Catholic fights again. And I don't see the IRA doing much these days. Although, if I remember correctly, Corbyn's a bit of a sympathiser with them. He's a fuck for that. What a lovely gentleman he is. I think he spoke quite well of him. Did you post this in some of your Shill Yourself channels on Discord? No, I didn't. I think I just put it on my Discord server, but no, I probably should at some point. So, some Labour MPs said their leaders' shift towards staying in a customs union was nowhere near enough. I assume this has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of Labour MPs are pretty much adamantly against every aspect of how Brexit negotiations are going. If anyone is interested, David Davis has to attend regular committee meetings, and they've given some speeches on this subject. It's not too complicated. It's just what it is. I don't understand how Labour, and I know the SNP are as well, but quite frankly, yes, they do. Magog, they are. You're quite right. I don't understand how Labour are so willing. I mean, there are a couple of MPs I know have said this. MPs across the entire chamber, in fact, have said that they will respect that while they voted they want to remain, they will respect the will of their constituents, which includes some Labour MPs voting to leave. But to vote against, and this does give Parliament the power to do so, they can vote, I believe they can vote on the end deal, the end product of what the negotiations have wrought. Based on how I see politics right now in the United Kingdom, I have this strange feeling that, Scot means, it just means a special kind, it means the other drunk, or violent drunk. Yeah. But I get the feeling that because of the way politics is currently structured and the way it's going, with it so divided and so unwilling to compromise or get along with each other, I have a strange feeling that they're going to vote down regardless of the offer. Even if, and I honestly, while I don't have much faith in Theresa May, I have some faith in David Davis. I think he can get us a somewhat decent deal. Yes. I think he has a better chance, though, than, for example, Keir Starmer, who's the shadow Brexit sort of secretary, I think. Sir Keir something. I know he has something to do with Brexit, and whenever David Davis has given statements in Parliament, he has absolutely, well, quotes, torn it apart. Whether you agree or not, I'll find the relevant ones. You can watch for yourself if you have time, which Magog doesn't. Between, cleaning Myrtle's toilet. So, Mr. Corbyn used a keynote speech at the National Transport Design Centre in Coventry to announce Labour's intention of remaining in a trading bloc. To do so, on a good summer day, Magog, I can actually see France from my window, and all I see are a sea of white flags. Yes. But this, and to go back to the article on Independent here, so remaining in the trading bloc, to do so would mean to remain in the EU. That sounds silly, but that is it. You cannot be a part of one and not the other. I don't see how you don't get this. It could be negotiated, of course it could, but it would be totally unaccepted. The EU has a position that no other country can breach. No other country has managed to breach. You pay tariffs. That's a simple fact. So what if you have to pay a tariff? I don't understand why you cannot accept this. While the single market is considered one of the strongest in the world, it's not the... It does really well, I will admit that. Of course it does. When it's not busy bailing out countries that it allowed to join the bloc that weren't vetted sufficiently. Ireland, Greece, Spain are prime examples of that. Greece really needs to learn to pay their taxes. Like normal countries do. The fact is, if we stayed in the bloc, we might as well not bother with negotiations. We may as well rescind Article 50 and continue to lose what remaining chips we had on the table. Indeed, it does, Magog. American to us means fancy little pet project. Labour would seek to negotiate a new comprehensive UK-EU customs union to ensure that there are no tariffs with Europe and to help avoid any need for a hard border in Northern Ireland. Right, okay, so I just want to quickly pull this out. Let's just go and look at and this is a weak point, but I want to point it out. So the population of Ireland is 4.7 million. Population of Northern Ireland, let's get this. Northern Ireland is 1.8 million. Okay. There are over 65 million people in the United Kingdom. Over 65, I believe. Let's have a look. Let's pull that. Let's just make sure, because I don't want to get that wrong. Okay? 65.6 million people as of 2016. This is, of course, inaccurate. Doesn't account for all the homeless people, which can never truly be accounted for. Point I'm making. You are focusing a point on a very small number, and while a big number, considering the entire population, a small number. In a very small country, Northern Ireland is quite small. It's about the size of a typical American yard. I'm just saying. It's just really, it's a weak argument and a weak position to hold, because you are yet again trying to appeal to the marginalised. I was not trying to make Skype go off while you were streaming. Oh, I didn't hear it, but I do see the alert at the bottom of my laptop because I was looking at my tablet, Litmus Anonymous. Oh, they did see the word ding. Thank you. The point is, yet again, you're going for the marginalised and then making that your talking point, but you're talking for such a small people, and no offence to Northern Ireland people, sorry, but 65 million people, you are 1.8. Honestly. I'm not saying you're insignificant, but when it comes to a talking point for the Labour leader, you are absolutely insignificant. And it's just not a valid talking point. I'm going to quickly find Theresa May's on Ireland hard border. Oh, nice, in blocks. Quitting customs union. Right, let's pull up Independent, February 2018. Okay, so claim Theresa May asks Irish Prime Minister for help on avoiding hard Irish border. Right, fine. Okay, claim that the Brexit preparations are reaching a peak fast with number 10, asking other governments to come up with ideas. Okay, so I'm just going to say, if you're asking another government, like the Irish government, for help with regards to the problem, that doesn't mean it's a farce or that you are asking others to come up with ideas. You're reaching out to somebody, relevant party, for assistance in trying to negotiate something that would benefit both countries. If you're unable to, so be it. Honestly, I'm quite happy to not anymore. Quite frankly, it's just fucking boring. Anyway. Where is it? However, he added, we are also clear that the option of a new UK customs union with the EU would need to ensure that the UK has a say in future trade deals. No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Honestly. I don't know how many more times I can repeat that. But honestly, we have no say. We have no cards on the table, no chips, no cards, no nothing. When we leave, it's over. And there should be discussion between the Irish, but if they're being overruled by the EU, then that's fine. And Corbyn, yes, Irate Bear, hello. And Magog is right. Irate Bear does actually literally translate into Downs. Corbyn, and I address you clearly here. I don't truly believe you've accepted the result. I don't believe you've accepted the will of the people, and I don't believe you would actually, if in position of power, give the people what they've asked for. While you are gullible, while you are easy to mislead, and while you are willing to talk to absolutely anyone and call them your friend as a way of attaining peace, even if it is Hezbollah and Hamas, and you did eventually regret it, but I think you more said that not as an apology, but more as a recognition of error, but not really sorry for saying it, because you're the friend of everyone, remember? The Czechs that love you. You are unfit to lead. Probably. Bye-bye, Magog. I think your ability to negotiate, and the arguments you're presenting as if you can in fact negotiate Brexit, is laughable. No one truly believes you have the capacity to give the British people what they want, and it's quite insulting that you would actually nice. It's insulting that you think that you can cherry pick, which is exactly what this is. Every aspect of what you've said, and it's an hour-long interview. Speech, sorry, and I really wanted to go over the whole thing, but honestly, I would need 2 to 3 other people, and one of them isn't about right now, just to go through all this nonsense. So, as far as the future trade deal thing goes, we have a say on the trade that we give to the EU. Yeah, because we have our own tariffs as well. Don't you know? If they trade with us, they pay tariffs as well. We set our tariffs on that regard. A new customs arrangement would depend on Britain being able to negotiate agreement of new trade deals in our national interest. It's interesting that you've chosen now to choose. It's interesting that you choose nation when it suits you. I think that's interesting. That actually is. Labour would not countenance a deal that left Britain as a passive recipient of rules decided elsewhere by others, but that's... Oh, you're such an idiot. Okay. I don't know how many more times I have to say this. The EU has rules. We are leaving the EU. Therefore, if we intend to trade with them, we must abide their rules. You're not putting me off, Ira, I promise. You're not putting me off at all. It's fine. I'm just one of those people that when I talk, I lose my thought very easily. I think there's a condition for it, but I don't think I have that condition. I think it's just old age. So, Jeremy, again, another point. It's all well and good operating in the nation's interest when it suits you, but we are leaving the bloc. Therefore, we are not entitled to a single privilege that the EU... Probably. We're not entitled to a single privilege that they provide us. We have to agree to their terms and accept it. It's just a fact. Hello, Tiger Lily. Okay. So here we are. That would mean ending up as mere rule takers. Well, yes, and they would too. Because if they wanted to trade with us, they would have to abide our rules. Which means we can actually, you know... fuck them up. Mr. Corbyn's aides later confirmed that a potential new customs union with the EU is merely, quotes, an option. And quotes, not a commitment. Come on. You heard this on the title of the article. It's such a weak position. It's like saying, okay, so Jeremy Corbyn believes he's a Prime Minister in waiting. Say he becomes Prime Minister tomorrow. I would take bets that he would immediately rescind Article 50. I think he would. I think he would do it. He is such a weak leader that he thinks he could just take... And obviously it's a kind of a contradictory thing to say he's a weak leader and then say he would rescind Article 50, obviously. But I think he would actually try and do that. Aid, yes, everyone has AIDS, don't you know? Leaving an option of a Labour government walking away from a deal if the EU does not meet demands for a seat at the negotiating table. But that's not a position. That's not an actual position to hold. We don't get a say on what they do. We're not... I know he wants to make Britain a truly global Britain. For the many, not the few. So like 7 billion, not for the couple millionaires that he doesn't like, or billionaires. But... oh, I don't get it. I don't understand. First of all, he's made sure that he has some wiggle room. Some wiggle room with the not a commitment quote. Okay, I get that. Because chances are you wouldn't deliver. Hello, Lord Krauts. Right. But I think... oh, God, what was I going to say? Doesn't matter. It says here we're saying a customs union between UK and European Union is an option. We're not saying that's a commitment. Of course you're not. Because if you said that, you'd be fucked. If that was a commitment of the Labour government, you know what that would tell me? That your entire slogan for the many, not the few, would actually be bullshit. Because the many voted to leave. Many also voted to remain, but more of the many voted to leave. And I don't understand why you are incapable of accepting this by trying very hard to wiggle yourself into a position where you think you have a negotiating stance. We will not have a say in how the EU operates. How they operate is down to them. I know you want to be a part of that, but that's not the deal. Okay. There's some more quote here. It's part of a whole package of different approaches to different issues. If you can't negotiate some parts of the package, then obviously you have to have alternative options. Well then, if this is an alternative option, I want to know what the original was. I would assume it was bend over and take it up the ass from Merkel. And yeah, they'll probably be exiled to Jersey or something. Stupid white people. Irate Bear will be included, no doubt. Right, he said Labour would not support a Brexit deal that would damage jobs and living standards, but if you've ever watched Prime Minister's Questions, a lot of the times when Corbyn is talking about how everything's in crisis, everything is, okay, yes, the housing thing is a problem, but we didn't have the money to deal with it at the time. We're now investing because we have the money. Everything's a crisis, though. Okay, so he probably would vote against it based on falsified fact. Alternative facts. Let's call it that. Let's call them not just alternative facts. Let's call it the Spinosaurus-Kin of facts. Alternative facts. Yeah, I like it. Spinosaurus-Kin of facts. I like it. Catchy. Spino, if you're ever watching this, love you. The Labour government, Shadow Cabinet, and SNP and whatever other tiny, insignificant parties are in the background, okay, want the government to publish their negotiating strategy. I want them to publish theirs first, and I bet it's a picture. I bet you it's a picture of Jeremy Corbyn's O, and I bet it's puckered just for Merkel, the real leader of the EU. Tinfoil hat on. Yep. He said Labour would not support a Brexit deal that would damage jobs and living standards, but declined to say that the lack of a customs union in any deal the government negotiates with Brussels would result in the party opposing against the package when Parliament is giving, quotes, a meaningful vote on the issue. Which means that eventually they'll either have to agree and vote in favour of it. Well, okay, to address Irate Bear, they did fuck a long time ago. In fact, his first marriage was destroyed by Abbott. Just saying. Okay, so this is where Labour's inconsistency arises. And I do want to now state before I do say this, the Tories are by no means a united party. You've got Jacob Rees-Mogg on a regular basis calling out the Treasury and the government with a weakened stance. In fact, I think I saw him on Twitter earlier making it quite clear what we want out of the EU when we leave. I think it was like 5 or 6 points. He called out the Treasury for fiddling numbers. Okay. So Labour are also like this. They're also inconsistent and unable to be united on it. All the while, for the many, not the few, huh? Or is it for the many, not the Jew? Some Labour MPs demanded Mr Corbyn go further and also pledged to keep the UK in the EU single market. Okay, so things that will happen. Ready? We are leaving the EU. Things that are happening. We're leaving the single market. We've never really been a part of the single market. So, let's face it, the single market also was reliant on people adopting the euro. And I'll be honest, that was never going to happen. Another thing that's going to happen, we are going to leave the customs union. Okay? We are not entitled to any privileges that the EU may give us. As much like they are not entitled to any privileges. Yeah, I do too, Irate Bear, but I think he'll be a one-term guy and he'll be done. But that won't be for another 4 years. Unless Mogg is in charge, or someone equally as, I would say, unflappable. If it's Gove, we're fucked. If it's Johnson, we're fucked. I think even if it's Johnson, we're fucked. If it's somebody that just doesn't buckle, then Conservatives could, in fact, I say we, I'm not a Conservative, but the Conservatives could in fact win. Fact is, you want to keep us in everything, your party members want to keep us in everything and not accept the result. Fact is, we're leaving everything. We don't get a negotiated, we don't have a position. We've already enacted Article 50. Okay? We are leaving. It's over. I know some people want to fight this to the end, I get it. But at this point, it's getting quite embarrassing. And I'll be honest, I'm not so big on the idea of just ignoring the will of the people and thinking, what's acceptable right now? Let's just ignore the majority, because they don't truly reflect the will of the people. The people that we represent are not the majority at all. And if we only ever listened to them, we'd never actually, win a bloody election. Yeah. Chris Leslie, a supporter of the pro-EU Open Britain campaign, said Jeremy Corbyn's speech is not the end of Labour's debate on Europe. His commitment to the customs union is welcome, but it is nowhere near enough, because it won't matter. He's not going to win anything. Is this too difficult? Why am I having to repeat myself? Staying in the single market is absolutely essential if we are to protect manufacturing jobs and investment and to avoid a hard border in Ireland. Okay, so we're gonna We're going to scrap hard border, okay? We're going to ignore it. See you later, irate bear. We're going to ignore that, because as far as I'm concerned, honest to fucking God, okay, whichever fake God it is you waste your time not praying to, it doesn't actually matter. I couldn't give a fuck about the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Sounds aggressive and rude. Don't care. I do not care about that border. I really don't. Okay? But to scaremonger still to this day by saying that we're going to lose manufacturing jobs and investment. First of all, your party leader is a socialist, so the idea of investing with a socialist leader is laughable. Quite frankly, it's an absolute fucking joke. You worship chaos. Good man. I don't want to assume your gender here, but I'm guessing. But the idea to continue using scaremongering tactics, okay, skulls for the skull throne, but to continue using it, even though it has been proven that it won't be the case. For example, people saying the economy would tank. Our economy hasn't tanked. In fact, our economy is fucking robust and strong. It's pretty damn good right now. To think we're going to lose manufacturing jobs when we've already had people say, yeah, we're going to trade with you when you leave. Trump being right at the top. I think Australia might have said something as well, I believe. Fact is, people are going to want to trade with us because we are, and will, for a while, I think, still be one of the top dogs in the world. Not the top dog, obviously. That will change in 2020 when Rillier and Mosca take over this world. I'm just saying. 2020, everyone. Magog and Cthulhu. Right. So there was more here. Ah, yeah. So fuck the hard border crap. I don't care. Just don't care. The investment idea is hilarious because your idea of investment is to borrow hundreds of billions to buy back public services to then, quote, invest in it. We sold it off in the first place because we couldn't invest in it anymore. And because we needed the money. And the idea of protecting manufacturing jobs, I get also the other argument. And this is one position I do take, which is why I want to enshrine in British law. The working time directive. That means you can only work a certain number of hours, and that, you know, you abide certain rules about holidays and break times. I'm okay with that. But if it's enshrined in British law, it's not a problem. Make that happen, and we don't have the issue at all, do we? Or is that too much to ask for, you know, simple rules and laws to be made? You know, being a politician, that is kind of part of your job to get that process going. Maybe it's too complicated for you. I know you're an ardent social justice warrior and socialist. Right, so there's a little bit more left of this article. Nor can we pretend that we are going to be able to buy our way into this, or that the European institution as though they were items on a menu. Of course, the only sure and certain way to get the benefits of a single market membership is to be a member of the single market, and we should not pretend otherwise. I think you greatly undersell just how good this country is. Honestly, I think you yet again have so little faith in the people, and yet you will stand on a plinth. You'll stand there on a stage with a nice little speech written in front of you, talking down about every aspect of society. Week in and week out, you stand in front of the Prime Minister at the dispatch box, and you say, blah 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 needs money, blah 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 overworked, blah 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 overpaid. Now I can agree with the overworked underpaid part. I think we need to do more about that. Of course we do. But you just talk everything down. I think you virtue signal when you decide to praise services, but then you just talk shit about it for the next 30 minutes. I think you also lack any kind of integrity when it comes to I think you lack any integrity when it comes to representing the people, because you don't represent the people. You're willing to give up on the people for an easier life, and that's one of the arguments I've had against a lot of people who voted Remain, who then said afterwards, we should just stay anyway. It's easier, because that's the thing. People just want. It's like the meaning of life has changed to convenience. It was once survival, but it changed to convenience because we're lazy. I say we, Some of us. I think it's always going to be a battle. I think if we want to establish our place, we should have faith in our people to do what's right and to do what they can. We're not exactly a community, by the way. So people constantly, like Jeremy Corbyn does this, talks about communities. Communities. Like he can represent them. He can't represent any of them. I don't understand how he's still in office. Anyway, so that's the Independent article. There are about... Oh, hang on. I thought I saw a load of comments. Let's have a quick look at these. See if there's any... Oh, no, there we go. Right. Scroll down, scroll down. Okay. Right. So, the top comment, well, the first one, written by Corbyn ate my hamster and other false Tory allegations. That name. Corbyn deliberately sabotaged Remain in the referendum campaign by doing next to nothing. He didn't set out a vote Labour... hang on. He didn't set out a vote Labour we Remain stall at the GE, and now this pathetic attempt to follow the party line after the horse has bolted. Corbyn is an ardent Brexiteer. He looks like he's chewing a wasp. Like many of the 65% of Labour voters that voted Remain, I am wondering what for the many, not the few, really means. I think we need new blood at the top. We need someone who represents the current generation. I am the older generation. I'm afraid the older generation are 75% against the EU. I don't know what he's written next. AHD, hark back to a time that wasn't actually that good. We have suffered the Tory austerity for 10 years. No, we haven't. Not 10 years. They were voted in 2010, dickhead. Learn to count. And I would point out that the Tory austerity had to be introduced. Gordon Brown exhausted the remaining option of quantitative easing, i.e. print off money in the vain hope that people will spend it. Dickhead. And I like the... Okay, so the idea of having young blood, I'm actually all for that. But I do not support the idea of giving younger people the vote. And you know what really sold it for me? You know what absolutely sold the deal for me? It was that moment when... Oh, fuck it. If I close the article by mistake... the part that sold it for me was the recent trend of teenagers eating Tide Pods. You lost any leg to stand on when that happened. Oh, the comment's gone. Oh. Okay. That's a shame. There was more to that article. More to that comment, sorry. Anyway, I think what I'll do... I'll close my tablet because I don't need to look at that. I'm going to look at this... BBC article for a nice bit of, totally not misleading or disingenuous writing. And there's 7,296 comments on this, which, I might look at those after this. So Jeremy Corbyn backs permanent customs union after Brexit, which obviously we now know his aides have had to issue a statement. He doesn't entirely. It's not a commitment. So, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has backed the UK being in a permanent customs union with the EU in a speech setting out his approach to Brexit. It's an hour long. If you want to watch it, go for it. He said this would avoid the need for a hard border, and again, I really don't give a fuck about Northern Ireland. Sorry, guys. I know if any of you are from Northern Ireland, or Ireland, I just don't give a fuck. A border's a border. Just respect... It's really boring to keep using that as a talking point because it's such a small number compared to the larger number. And I know someone's probably going to say, yes, but only 17 million people voted in that election. That doesn't truly reflect on the entire United Kingdom. You're right. But the turnout was over 70% of those who were eligible to vote. Because, they were old enough. And the young turnout wasn't that great. It wasn't horrific, but it wasn't great. And also people at work. Or just didn't give a fuck. Okay. The policy shift could lead to Labour siding with Tory rebels, I think it's about 62 of them, to defeat Theresa May on her Brexit strategy. No one actually knows what the strategy is. There might have been a white paper, I believe, but it's not been made public. The Tories said it was a cynical attempt to frustrate Brexit and play politics with our country's future. Wasn't that the whole point? I get the feeling Labour are almost like trolls at this point. Not doing it for the will of the people, but for lols. Which I think is more important to them than actually accomplishing anything worthwhile. And as Irate Bear pointed out earlier, he could win in 4 years' time. He could, if he's still alive. He could actually win. Because people are sick of the austerity. The austerity that had to be introduced. It had to be because of the reckless spending of Gordon Brown. Fuck's sake, the guy sold our gold reserves for a fraction of what they were worth. At their lowest moment, he sold them. What kind of dickhead does that? People think that George Osborne was a terrible chancellor, but he didn't recklessly spend our money. Mr. Corbyn insisted in an interview with BBC political editor Laura Kuennersberg, whatever, that his speech was a firming up of Labour's existing policy and that he did not want the UK to follow the Norway model, ending by bound by EU rules but having very little say in them. But this is the problem. Norway just abides it because Norway agrees with it. They agreed to terms. What he's trying to do here is say, oh, actually, you know what he's doing? He's getting ideas above his station. He thinks that we are better than the EU, but we should be a part of it. If that makes sense. So there are some key quotes and what he meant. Oh, actually, will that pull up a video? Oh, no, that's far too long. Screw that shit. That's too long. Right. Here we are. He said the UK would have to have a meaningful say in post-Brexit trade negotiations with the EU, so we would not end up as simply passive rule takers. No. I've already been through this. The point stands. We are leaving, therefore we will abide their rules when it's time. And we will have they will abide our rules when they trade with us. If they trade with us. But if they want to, they can, but they agree with our rules. It's not their rules both ways. Anyway, he also denied claims by Eurosceptic Labour MPs that he had betrayed Labour voters who had backed Brexit, saying they did not vote to lose their jobs, and the UK would still be leaving the EU under his plans. Bollocks. First of all, this is why it's for the many, not the few. It's quite a terrible slogan, because you then ignore the few, or you perceive as the few, that voted to leave that are Labour voters. You ignore them. You decide what's best for them. That's what you're doing. And that flies in the face of what people voted. Now, yes, I will agree that the Conservative Party now have to try and find a way to negotiate a deal that appeases 16 million people. But at the same time, they didn't win. So when you're now trying to represent the losers, you're representing what, the wrong side? Maybe? I don't want to use that turn of phrase. It sounds quite poorly constructed. Actually, it is poorly constructed. But that is the fact. Yeah. Let's go with that. May has no strategy. Yes, Neil White, you're quite right. She does not. She is a fucking useless leader. I have said that on multiple occasions. She's not good. Let's see. If the modern incarnation of the Round Table Milner groups... Oh, I don't know what you're talking about now. Corbyn is the type to set up a secret society and then set up a Patreon page for it. Okay, so what you're saying, Omegon, is giving them a runner-up prize? Yeah, sure. Let's give them a participation medal. Yeah, there you go. Anyway. In his speech at Coventry University, Mr. Corbyn accused the Conservatives of having no economic plan and no plan for Brexit. If we were this far into it, right, into negotiations, and there was no plan, and it came out that there was no plan, I would honestly call for Theresa May to resign. She would have to resign. She'd have to quit. There wouldn't be another snap election, though. You have to accept that. There was one last year, because you were the weakest you'd ever been. It backfired on May massively. But if she didn't have one, and she was this far in, we'd be fucked. But the fact that the EU have had to weaken their stance, their negotiating strategy, that is, means that at least there is something going on that would indicate there was a plan or is a plan, and it's possibly working. He said Labour would be looking for a Brexit that puts the working people first. If that was the case, you wouldn't be doing what the SNP does. Constantly bleat on about the single market and the customs union and this hard... Okay, Scotland doesn't care about the hard border either. Actually, I could agree with the SNP on this one. Nobody gives a fuck about it. Labour would seek a final deal that gives full access to European markets and maintains the benefits of a single market and the customs union. That quote alone says everything you need to know. Is that not the most cherry picking of the deal? It basically says, okay, so we're leaving, but we're going to do this, 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 and this, and you're going to be okay with it. Like, you have any cards to deal. Unbelievably. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, so I think I think I'm almost done with this, because this is that quote alone says everything. It does just say, I'm going to cherry pick. If there's anything in the chat you'd like to ask about this, or if you'd like to add anything, by all means drop a comment now, and yeah, I'll see if I can read it, understand it. Yes. What's Miss Notice? Yeah. Otherwise, I think I'm going to end this now. I hope this wasn't as informal as it's come across as quite informal. If I'd had more time, I would have prepared this better. I will probably now transfer over to my Omegon Plays channel, because I'm helping Skog move house on 7 Days to Die. So, thank you all for joining me. If you're interested in reading any of the sources, they are linked below. Thank you all for thank you all for listening. Oh, is Diane Abbott a dumb cow or a smart actress succubus? She is a fucking retard. She is numerically illiterate or innumerate. She is ugly. She is a hypocrite. And she is a homewrecker. Anyway, thank you all for listening.